You're listening to The Talent Sync, a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's topic is about candidate and employer fraud. Enjoy the podcast. Leah, how are you doing? It is so great to see you again. And it is now summertime, Leah.
The sun is shining. The summer is shining too,
The
apparently.
summer can shine, sure.
Oh my goodness, the sun is shining. We're not done school yet though, because here in New England we go to school
That's
until
right.
until August, and then we
That's
start again in
right.
September.
We've been out since the end of May, and that's when all the promotions and graduations are. And
I love it.
my youngest finished eighth grade, which they were super excited about, ready to go on to high school to be with their sister now, which is great. And uh but we but yeah, so we finished. But speaking of, the summer does shine, not always here though, because we have what you call June gloom in the Bay Area. I don't know if you've ever experienced
Boo.
that, where you get the marine layer and the low clouds and fog. Keeps it cool when it's like super hot inland in California, but it's been beautiful though. The weather's been super gorgeous. So good
Well,
stuff.
that's nice.
So school's almost out for you then. Yes.
Almost. One more week. One more week.
One more week. Very nice.
We're almost
So
there.
are you slow on the work travel time for now then? Is that, or you've got it?
No,
Oh
no, let's
no.
go.
You're
No,
ready, you're just full steam ahead. Is that the deal?
absolutely. The
Yeah.
sun is shining. Get on a plane.
Well, but you also, you're visiting a lot of customers too, right? Right, is that
Yeah,
true, or
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say, Kevin, I had probably the one of the worst flights I've had in a while
Uh-oh.
recently.
What's that?
0 out of 10, would not recommend. I had one of those planes that drop. So we took off and then it dropped probably 10 feet. When I will say two things. I have never seen a plane full of people not want the beverage service nor get up to use the restroom for the entire flight. Everybody was like, no, thank you. We're
Was
gonna like seatbelt and strap in here.
was that because of the way they have to do the flight plan, or was that unplanned?
Unplanned. I
Oh, it
don't
was
think that was
unplanned.
planned. I
Okay.
don't think that was part of the plan. But I will
Be,
say that the flight attendant was amazing
yeah.
because he was in the middle of his announcements when it happened. And then we dropped again, we steadied, and then he just picked right back up and continued to talk about our access to the Wi-Fi and entertainment. Like it didn't happen.
See,
I
but
was like,
that's what they're supposed to do,
oh,
right? That's what they're supposed to do. I mean, yeah, considering what just happened with the Air India flight. Yikes. Anyway,
right. Yep.
right?
2 days later on that plane.
Man, but the no, there is, when you fly in and out of San Diego, I don't remember if it's when you're landing or when you're taking off, there's this weird ceiling law where it's actually planned, where I think you do a drop. Um,
Oh.
because it's a noise ordinance locally or something. Anyway, and it's kind of but that's planned though. I know that in San Diego. So, well, there you go. Um,
I mean, I like this. This is a good transition, right? I like when things are planned and I know what's happening versus when I get
yes,
a little surprise that,
exactly.
that I
Well,
didn't want.
right. That's exactly right. Well, my next trip, which is coming up this week, as of this recording at least, is a surveil team meeting, and I'm driving because it's not that far away. So,
Like
but
that. I like
well, as the crow flies, it's never that far away. But in the Bay Area, as I've told you before, it's a crapshoot sometimes. Driving anywhere with all that good stuff. Well, listen, we're gonna talk about. There's been a lot of buzz of late, or not just of late, but the past year even or more, about both on the candidate and the employer side, the kind of growing fraud, right?
Yep.
Candidate fraud, employer fraud, and there's been a lot of posts about it. There's been a lot of maybe semi-analysis, just a lot of talking about it. And I know recently there was an article that John Vascasalinta, he posted an article, which is a great piece. And I don't know if I thought I shared it with you. It's about what talent leaders need to know and do about the upsurge of candidate cheating. And as I read through it, some of this stuff, I totally have heard and seen. And like, for example, this is partly why there's been some more on at least on the tech company side of wanting to do more in-person interviews again
Yeah.
because of some of the fraud that's occurred with candidates on doing virtual interviews using generative AI to answer questions, trying to pull that stuff off. And I've heard from TA leaders, I mean that's stuff that they've seen, their recruiters have seen, they're experiencing it, and it's happening. But there's also fake employers that get set up
Yep.
and try to and scam candidates into this has been a couple of years now, but I remember hearing a story of one that was saying they were telling candidates that they had to like put a small deposit down
Yeah.
in order to set up an account and then just get scammed, right? So that's our premise for today. That's what we're going to discuss. So
Well,
what
let's tackle this candidate thing. So
yeah,
we talked about, let's talk about this. And in my mind, I don't know if I told you this story before. I remember in the early 2000s hiring entry level position, customer success type training type role, and I phone screened a kid. A kid, that's not very nice. A person. I phone screened a person.
sure.
He was lovely, just out of school,
A
first
young
job.
person, a young person.
It was an entry level opportunity, and I remember screening this person. They were really poised on the phone, answered the questions. They were great. Brought them in. I was the first interview of the day, and I sat in that interview for the first 10 minutes and went, "This is not the same person I spoke to on the phone."
Mm,
This is early 2000, maybe 2003.
sure.
And in my head, I'm going, this is not the same person. This is not the same person. Like to the point where I'm no longer paying attention to the interview that I'm conducting because I'm so focused on the fact that I've got somebody in front of me who I am
Yeah.
positive is not who I screened. And I said, I'm so sorry. I gotta stop this interview. Can I ask you a question? Um, did you hire someone to do this phone screen for you? Because the way you're speaking, your intonation, your tone, choice in words, none of these match the person I spoke with. Now he could have lied to me, but he didn't. He came clean.
Really?
Said said yeah, I paid somebody. I wasn't doing very well on phone screen, so I paid somebody to help me get in-person interviews. I thought I'd do better in person.
But he didn't.
Well, no, now he's not. I know he lied to me.
Well, what I
It's
mean is
over.
though, I know, but prior to that, you obviously picked up on that it was different anyway, though, is my point,
I did.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
So he
for
wasn't selling himself like the phone screen did.
no,
So,
first phone screen guy I was gonna hire tomorrow.
that's I have to share a little empathy alert here too, though, right? Because I mean, I know that there are job candidates. There are scammer job candidates, not even serial appliers, but scammer job candidates that are working out of countries from all over around the world, and
Yep,
because I've talked to employers who got as far as for remote positions making offers to people.
yep.
And then flags started going off during background checks, and like, this is not a real person. Get him out of our system now. I mean,
Yep,
all that stuff happening. But I empathize where before we started recording today. We know that the the candidate fraud, unfortunately, is as old as resume time, right?
yep,
I mean, we've people fudge on their resumes, they fudge in their cover letters, they fudge in their recommendations that they get sometimes. I mean, everybody wants to try to show themselves in the best light, and how far can they push that and still sell themselves authentically and realistically. And I think we've all, I mean, I've never on out, full transparency, I've never myself tried to defraud anybody, but I have rounded up, as they say.
well,
Right?
so I saw this stat that came out from a company called DataFacts. They were related to background screening. They were like 1 in 14 job candidates commit some sort of fraud.
Mm,
I was like, okay. What's fraud?
Yeah, did
What?
they outline what that is? What
Yeah,
how
it's a pretty big group of things though.
yeah,
Fraud can be everything from lying on your resume to being not a real person at all, right? And
right.
everything in between, or
Yeah.
maybe exaggerating a bit, right? So there's lots of room in that definition of what is candidate fraud. And I think when we hear people talking about candidate fraud, they're not talking about the roundup or a little extra on the resume. I think they're really starting to talk about the not a real
Right,
person,
right.
um, that not not um
And
actually interested in the job, right? They're applying for some other reason. There's some other thing going on that makes them want to apply for this job.
but it's not always, but don't you think though, it's not always necessarily nefarious though, right? I mean, it could be like, I mean, for example, one this was even this was actually already a couple of years ago too. So again, this is none of this is new. But one company, the head of TA was sharing that their recruiters were doing virtual interviews and they started noticing this pattern for some of their tech positions that technically it's a tech company that this head of TA worked for, and the recruiters, were screening candidates from all over the world, a lot of remote tech positions they were hiring for. They noticed this, they were starting to notice candidates like little delays in their answers during the like unnatural delays, like they were reading something, like they were like getting an answer and they were reading and so what they ended up doing, and I don't know if this solved the problem long term, but they started to give the candidates for these positions the questions ahead of time. Literally, they did.
Yep.
And they and had some other parameters that they put into place too, and I that started to help them a little bit. But there have been others that of individuals that are starting to require in person again more to try to thwart any of that kind of end around stuff that could go on with the on the candidate side. But because again, take out the serial players, take out the people who aren't real people that are trying to scam the employers, that are just somebody is, I mean, I'm not advocating, any extensive any fraud on any level for that matter. But there is a big difference between, like you were saying, rounding up and saying I did this when I did not do this at the end of the day. And it's a it's kind of a waste of time for the employer and the candidate too, especially if they're serious about the job.
It's interesting, right? I think there's a couple of things to peel apart here. So first, giving candidates the questions ahead of time. I have two things that have been said to me from two different employers that I always resonate. So the
Sure.
first is that interviews rarely determine the success of a candidate in the job.
Exactly.
It's more
Exactly.
of a test of their ability to manage anxiety.
Yep.
That was a famous quote of Jackie Clayton, and I love when she said that
That's true.
because
Yeah.
for very few jobs, the ability to dance on your feet live is the job, right?
Right.
Like for most jobs, you have time to think about it, marinate, come back, whatever. The second, which I think is a really important one to think about from this perspective of should we give the questions ahead of time, an employer said to me recently, one of the things we're trying to deal with right now in this world is candidates who uh, are going to use AI. There's just no way around it. Like this is our new world.
Yeah, it is.
So are we measuring them on their baseline or are we measuring them on themselves, their baseline plus AI? Either one is fine, but we need to make sure we're measuring all the candidates equally.
Right.
So either everybody is the baseline or everyone is the baseline plus an AI helper, but we can't measure the AI helpers against the baseline because that actually doesn't tell us enough about who's the right candidate for us as a business.
It doesn't. And not when also, and that's a really good point that you just brought up because again, in our data, and I know I had mentioned this to you before where I've been seeing posts that, you know, it's like candidates gone wild VHS set of like no, I mean, but no, of like just of being fraudulent and using AI tools. And the reality is, I mean, in our data, it's still less than 50%, 15% that say they're using generative AI.
Yep.
period. And it's less than 5% that say they're using AI applying tools. So,
Yeah, and I have similar data, right? And where the majority of people who do say they're using AI, it's to rewrite their resume
right, that is correct. That is,
or
yes.
cover letter if you happen to be an organization who still wants a
Because we're
cover
all
letter.
doing that. And over 50% of the employers in my Candy research data are using generative AI to help their candidate communication improvements and their job descriptions. And we're all using these tools. But I would be wary, though, to your whole point, though, of what is the baseline plus AI if only that many are actually using those tools? That probably will change in the next 5 years dramatically. I mean, it becomes ubiquitous with when the worldwide interwebs first came online. Not, I mean, I had email at when I worked at a university in the late 80s, early 90s, but there was no internet then.
Right.
We had the internet. I mean, the
Intranet.
intranet. Sorry, that's what I was
The
trying to say.
intranet. You had a
Intranet.
mainframe,
We don't
Kevin.
even use that word anymore, do we?
You had a
Intranet?
you had a mainframe, I bet, and like terminals.
Oh, totally. It was the
Oh yeah.
university and the whole California State University and UC University systems were all interconnected at that time. They were all
Yeah.
to share information. But anyway, this so that was before that, right? And then, you fast forward to late 90s, early 2000s, and everybody's on the internet. You're listening to the Talent Sync. Keep on sinking. With us, not really sync with us. Thank you. What do your candidates think of your recruiting process? The annual Candy Benchmark Research and Awards program helps you and your organization measure and understand your overall candidate experience ratings from pre-application to onboarding. Benchmark your candidate experience today. Go to surveil.com/candies, Candes.
So I think that this whole thing though is really stemming not from fraud, but a perceived fraud due to a couple of things coming together at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So we have like a cooling of the employment market. You see sort of this while unemployment is staying somewhat steady in terms of its actual percentage, we are still seeing new layoffs and people entering the market
Yes.
and those people are applying to a lot of the same kinds of jobs, right? They're all professional jobs. They tend to be lower to mid-market. There's just a lot happening in that space where I think employers are getting a lot of applicants. And so it's easy to
Yes.
say unemployment's not that much higher. It must be candidate fraud. It must be these lazy applies. The second is they're calling a lot of them, they're getting ghosted. All right, well, why is that happening? Right? That's probably a better question. Why is ghosting being up so much? Why is that happening? And I think the last piece is you have an amplification on the social media sites, the pundits that are all saying, oh, it's happening, it's happening, it's
Yeah.
happening. And why are they doing it? Well, some of them are being paid by organizations that might help you combat it. So there may be some incentive
Yes.
for that
Yes.
amplification. It also is something to talk about, like something new to talk about. We're
Yeah.
always looking for the new thing to talk about. And there are these tools called Lazy Apply out there that people are aware of. They've
Yes.
seen them. And so in your head, you're like, that's got to be happening. It's got to be happening a lot. And like my data says that it's not happening as much as we think it is. But
No.
the generative AI resumes absolutely are.
They are. No, and that's why I also wonder if my data is maybe a little suppressed because of even though they're anonymous responses, maybe there's a wariness of thinking, am I going to admit that I'm using AI right now? And in this job
Mhm.
search that could get me dinged, although we don't know who they are, neither do the employers. But so I agree with you on that. I think that for those that are, but on the other side of that is that candidates believe wholeheartedly, because this goes back actually to when everything went online and ATSs, but way before AI was even chic or at all, or a gleam in any of these founders' eyes. They believe that all employers are screening them out using AI and
Absolutely. They
technology. And
100% believe that.
and we know, you and I both know that that's very far from the truth. I mean, for selection at least, candidate, just like a lot of more candidates are using generative AI, and so are employers and the TA teams, but they're for selection, employers aren't doing too much. You've got the Workday lawsuit, which is kind of the collective lawsuit that's throwing things a little into a little bit of a tizzy. But employers are wary to use that, but they're using it for their interview scheduling and their candidate communications and status updates and other things that they are doing that. But candidates hands down believe if they are rejected without talking to anybody soon after they've applied, it's AI now.
Yes,
And it's just
universally.
and it's not the case. Um, but anyway, so back to the whole thing about, and now this is where I think, and I haven't seen anybody connect the dots. I'm not saying that this is super intuitive of myself even, but because it is a difficult market right now for new, especially new grads entering the job market. I was just reading another article about it's just super hard, tough out there
Yes.
at the salaried level.
Yep.
So that is going to potentially, I mean, that's going to push, I think, maybe some more adoption of using automated tools on the candidate side to try to help them get noticed, get
Well,
seen.
but
Get,
that opens up the other half of this conversation, which is company fraud,
yeah.
right? So you have, and this is, I don't know if this happened to you, but I get on the regular a really nice text message from an unknown phone number offering me a really great job for
Oh,
like
oh,
$18 an
sure. I get
hour
that spam all the
all the
time.
time,
Yeah.
right? I didn't opt into that. I don't know what
No.
it is,
Nope.
but they're posting fake jobs up on, on the job boards. They are trying to get candidates to apply for a fake job. Okay, so why is that happening, right? If
Yeah.
you are a candidate, why would that happen? Well, it's happening because they are actually going through the process of onboarding you. You're getting the job, by the way.
Right.
Congratulations. You applied, you're going to get this job because they want to get you through onboarding and they want your bank details, right? They want you to fill out the background check information and give them your social security number. They want you to fill out all of the I-9 forms. They are going through a process to hire you because they want your bank account.
Yeah, and unfortunately people they fall for that. Can't
Well,
job
and
can't with because when you are in a situation, this is why, I remember even years ago talking about and before my daughter even applied for her first camp counseling job, if an employer ever asks you for your social security number before you're even interviewed, much less getting an offer for the job,
yep,
you are not doing anything else with that employer.
it's over.
It's
But
over.
it's so interesting, right? Because just like, I look at this Workday lawsuit and you're like, oh, AI, and it's like, actually, I don't think any of the issue in
No,
that
that was
lawsuit is
no,
AI.
no.
But the same thing
Yeah.
is the thing that's coming, that's a lot of that is stemming from the EEOC,
Yeah.
the OCCP requirements to collect all of this information that is unnecessary for the hiring process. Like nobody cares what your gender is or your race or your military status in order to hire you. That is a data collection service. We put as employers our WOTC, our work opportunity tax
Right.
credits
Right. Right. Right.
form up at the front of the application where we ask for your home address, we
Yeah.
ask for your social security
Right.
number.
Right.
And it's like we are creating our own problems
Yeah, that's
in
true.
doing this because there is no reason as a candidate that data needs to be disclosed at that point in time.
Correct.
We don't need to, but we are. We ask for it. And so here we are asking for your social security number on your application. And so we have normalized that behavior and that request. And this candidate has applied to 200 jobs with no response, and they're giving you all that data. And then you're responding, you're calling them back and like, let's interview, let's hire you, right? This is how candidate fraud is happening. I think this is, fortunately we created the garden that allows the snake to come in, and
We
here we
did.
are.
We did. So what, I mean, let's touch on based on everything that we have shared so far, what are some things that you recommend? Because especially with a lot of the organizations that you work with, when you are talking more on a technical, even compliance level, right, with your customers of what should be done and should not be done, what are some things that you would recommend to help the employer kind of help stem that? Because if we created, like you said, if we created the garden the snakes have crawled
Yeah.
into. Well, how do we wall that off then a little bit more today? Because
Yeah.
I mean the AI cat's out of the bag, so it's not Schrodinger's cat, so it's alive and well, and here in the room, and it's going to. So what do we do?
It's a great question because I think that it's a patchwork quilt happening right now. So you'll notice our friends at Indeed and LinkedIn go through extraordinary measures to validate that a company exists if they want to post a job that's not through one of their ATSs or one of through
Sure,
their one of their partners or their standard methods, right? So they are validating companies' existence, and they're doing it in really interesting ways. They're like, you need to send us like your lease agreement for your address, or you need to send us an electric bill. Like they are trying to do it. I actually appreciate the effort. You've got, you know, corporations who are putting notices on their career sites. Like, if you are a candidate for our business, this is how we will communicate with you. This is what you're going to get for communication from this email address, this domain. But I think what happens, and it's hard, is that we're now using more and more layers of ways to talk to people. So we're using a text message platform, and that uses a short code, and that it doesn't really connect to anything the candidate might be looking at to validate. Or we're
right.
using our ATS to communicate. So your communication is coming out of it, not your domain. So we have a challenge where the technology itself is actually not necessarily aligning to this problem that we have to solve. Some of it is and some of it isn't, and I think it's tough as a company. I think you have to be really really transparent about what you're doing. The problem is that the scammers aren't, and they don't have to be.
No, they don't have to be. And you, to your point about companies putting more information on their career sites and websites, I've had those anecdotal conversations with candy employers that participate in our benchmark research that are trying to do more of that, and also to show the majority of I hopefully legitimate candidates that, by the way, we are humans and we are trying to look at the jobs. But I'll tell you something, I don't have a specific number for you, but I would argue that a good majority of employers over the past couple 2 to 3 years that I've seen in our data, at least, their teams are smaller than they've ever been.
Yep.
TA teams, the recruiting teams.
Yep.
There was only a couple of exceptions this past 2 weeks that I saw where they actually were growing. It made sense probably because of the industry they were in, but most have not. They've gotten smaller. So you've got of the volume of candidates, you got a bump in serial applications. You do have more of the fraud that we're talking about, and which is where, I think that working with your vendors, getting like how are they helping you potentially, or
Yep.
can they help you mitigate
Well,
what's happening today too, right? I mean, that should be a conversation that's had besides actually at maybe trying to do more. Another thing that I saw online that was in that article I referenced earlier was having more human proctoring of tests and assessments and not so much online, and having more in-person interviews versus virtual. I mean, but that's only going to go so far for certain kinds of positions that you're hiring for, not when you're a global multinational organization hiring in every country around the world. That's hard to do.
it's hard. I will say I did see one company put a check in that I thought was interesting in their process. So you have your address where you live,
Yeah,
whatever it might be. After onboarding, where they actually put in a form? It says, where should we ship your computer? And they do it to check to see. They know it's late in the process.
right.
It's not the ideal time, but it's a good way to see, like, oh, you want us to ship the computer to Chandigarh, but you live in
Yeah.
Trenton, New
Right,
Jersey?
right. That's true. That's a really good point.
Why? Why are
Yeah,
we doing that?
yeah,
Right? And no, we're not, by the way, no, we're not. So allowing them to have an extra checkpoint that says, does the location in which the computer will be delivered or the resources or whatever it is that they need to physically deliver, making sure that that is actually going to the place in which the candidate lives or says
yeah,
they live.
yeah. That's a really good point. Um, so what else, Leah? What else do we want to round out about this? I mean, I think it's a difficult situation for employers that have an uphill battle with any volume of applications they're receiving. That percentage of fraud, I think it will continue to grow, although it's not as prevalent as what is maybe being shared elsewhere online that I've seen, but it's here. It's here to stay.
Yep.
I think you made an excellent point about just the very systems that we have created have allowed for this to proliferate, actually,
Yep.
unfortunately. We do, and that goes back to we do want to, I've seen dramatically, we want to make it easier to apply. And so over the years we made it super easier to apply. And even on whether it's from a mobile perspective, I wrote about that recently, although that's not as high as what even mobile should be, but that's another show, another conversation. But I mean, just we made it easier to apply, less than 10 minutes. A lot of the times just getting people in the door, but again, it's there. It's gonna be there. I think that, there's employer fraud too, and candidates need to be wary of that as well. Again, going back to the point of like, you're asking me for what? You want my banking information? You want my social security number? No, 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 no. I haven't even gotten the job offer yet.
Yep.
But then on the candidate side, it is going to continue to grow. We're going to have to definitely keep touching on this one because I think that we've only just now, even in this crazy market that we're in today, too, and it's very difficult for new grad hires, it is the explosion of AI related and generative AI stuff in our lives is only just begun to explode.
Well, and
Still.
I think on the new grad front, this is an interesting and for like as old people who are employed, this is an interesting time. As an
Yes.
unemployed new grad drowning in debt, this is a terrifying moment in time where you're thinking to yourself, why can't I get a job? These companies are all saying, I don't know if I need entry level roles anymore because I got this AI thing that will, maybe doesn't do it yet, but maybe will do that job. Do I hire people when I'm going to have an AI do it? Let's test it out. Let's see how accurate it is. So I do feel for the new grads because I think right across the board, that is where, as we've talked about before, AI is going to make an impact. And so you take out that group of jobs that's no longer available, and now you've made it far more competitive for the next level of jobs. And so you've got these new grads who can't get a job that are drowning in debt. You've got people who are already employed who want to stay employed. You have less opportunities. I think it's going to get messy. And I think the fraud piece on the exaggeration side, that's where I think you're going to start seeing more and more of it as people try to get noticed and recognized
Yeah.
so they
It,
have an opportunity.
so the reality will catch up to the exaggeration, basically,
Right.
is
So
what we're
my
saying.
back to my beginning, right? This poor kid, all he wanted was a chance, and his in
Right.
his mind, he's like, all I got to do is get through this one interview, and then I'm gonna shine. I'm gonna be magical. They'll hire me because I'm my winning personality. I think that mental model is gonna start to become prevalent, and that's where I think a lot of this fraud's gonna come from in the next wave.
Right. Especially when, again, probably more, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe more at the salary to management level, professional to management level than we'll see at on the hourly gig level for sure.
Oh,
Right.
for sure. I think in
Yeah.
that space, we're still, what are we, 7 million short
Yeah.
in the US
Yeah.
market. Like
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's a real problem there yet. I think
Yeah.
those folks are just applying and getting a getting an offer.
Exactly, exactly. Well, Leah, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure
Likewise.
talking shop with you. And thanks again, everybody, for getting synced with the talent sync and listening to our podcast. And make sure to stay tuned. We'll be having more shows coming soon after this one. So, Leah, thank you again so much. And we'll until the next time.
Until next
Have
time. Nice
until
seeing you.
next time. You too. All right.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Surveil Candy and Job Sync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe to our podcast via your favorite podcast player today.